That's it. You're all getting arrested. No, you can't break free of the cuffs. No, you can't try and fight back. No, you're going to prison. No, no, stop trying. No, no. I like this helmet still. I even painted it a little bit, but I need to make it a little better. So what was that? That was a dungeon master trying to maintain control over his party. And it wasn't going well. Now, why was that? Why was it not going well for him? Well, the honest answer was because he was trying to take power away from his players. You never take power away from your players. That's one of the rules that we're covering today. But there are three main rules that I have. And if I don't cover one that you think is equally important, leave it down below in the comments. Because, well, this is a place for all of us to learn how to be a dungeon master, as well as how to be a better player. I mean, if we're not playing with each other, who are we playing with? This thing. Ooh. Reflexes. This thing. The Dungeon Master's Guide. Well, it's a pretty good book. But, it's a guide. The rules of being a Dungeon Master aren't actually in here. There's rules for the game, how to play it, or mechanics, really. But it's a guideline. That's all it is. The first rule is you're limited by your imagination, but think reasonably. The reason why is because, well, if you can't make it reasonably work in the setting of either a world that you know already exists and all of your players are familiar with, or a homebrewed world that you are creating, then, well, if you can't reasonably fit it in there and have it work with everything else, then it probably doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, your players will call you out on it. So, let's think for a moment. How many of us have stolen from Hobbit? Or from R.A. Salvador's Forgotten Realms books about Drizzt Do'Urden, the Drow Ranger? Oh, or Dragonlance? Quite a number of us, haven't we? And that's fine. That's fine. If you decide to rip things from other worlds, that's perfectly legal. I mean, so long as you're not trying to claim it as your own and sell it and merchandise it, it's perfectly fine to use someone else's world to kind of enjoy yourselves and have your players enjoy as well. Just don't go overboard with it, alright? You know, there comes a line where you're just plagiarizing and you are being imaginative and creative with this world. But as I said, be reasonable. If you decide I'm going to create a new fireball spell that only hurts evildoers and your players get it, well, I can tell you what I would be doing if I had it. I would be casting that thing as if I was casting a butter spell on garlic bread. The reason being is, well, if it only hurts evildoers, then only evil people are going to get hurt by it. And that sounds like a great thing to me. I mean, I just cleansed the world in holy fire. Problem solved. That's the problem. You know, it doesn't have much of a consequence of using it in close quarters. It won't hurt my party members. All my party members are good aligned. And it only hurts evildoers. I don't gotta worry about things. So, be imaginative, but be reasonable. And it also comes from the fact that if you decide to bring your players to a world that you all know, such as Middle Earth or Greyhawk, or just go around and pick a few, make sure that all of you are on the same page. If it's an alternate timeline or so on, this falls under the be imaginative but be reasonable. The reason being is that if everyone's on the same page, it's good, but if not everyone's on the same page, then there's going to be some problems. So, rule 2. Never take power away from your players. As I was showing with the opening little skit, never take power from your players because it frustrates them just as much as it frustrates you. Yeah, you're doing it to try and, move the story along and tell a story to your players, but if you have to tie their hands and force them to sit there in order for you to tell the story, they're not going to enjoy it. At all. I've had to deal with it, and I didn't like it one bit. I was playing my chaotic neutral warrior who just went bat shit crazy when people try to restrain him and, force him to listen to some villain's monologue. And I ended up getting frustrated because it's like, look, my guy can easily overpower these people. He's strong enough, and he's done it before, and I rolled high enough on a strength check to where, within reason, this scrawny little cultist who's holding me back, I should be able to suplex him into the ground. So you're telling me this scrawny little cultist who's holding on to one of my arms is strong enough to overpower me to keep me from doing anything? Okay, sure. And once again, it's that friction between the Dungeon Master and the player. There's going to be some friction. It happens. But you need to be careful that it's not a bad kind of friction. Some friction is good, not all good friction. The reason I say that is because if you cause the wrong kind of friction and cause too much of friction, it can cause that little cohesive bond between you and your players to start wearing away, and the two of you won't see eye to eye anymore. So never take power away from your players. You might be trying to tell a story, but be reasonable. Because if your players decide, I want to interrupt the monologue of the villain and attack him while he's still talking, let him. Let him. If he hits, he hits. That's what I say. But at the same time, I might have something more planned for that particular villain. So I might have a contingency spell on him, to where if his health hits a certain level, he teleports out. He's gone. Well, how do you leave? Contingency spell. He had, in preparation, a spell to get him out if things got too bad. And that's what a smart villain would do. And that's something you also have to keep in mind. If you have a smart villain, or at least one that's intelligent enough to be able to plan an entry and exit strategy, he would be prepared in case he was caught monologuing or caught unaware by the party. He would make sure he has an exit plan, because that's what a good villain has. You don't want it to be too easy on the players, but at the same time, you want to make them feel like, yeah, we made him run. But you don't want to make it feel like, man, he got away because the Dungeon Master wanted him to get away. You see the two, it's kind of a rough line to walk, but you want to make sure that you are in that area to where the players feel like we were able to drive the villain back. We were able to force him to flee because he could not handle us. That's what you want. You never want to take the power from your players and make them feel like the Dungeon Master said he got away and we couldn't do anything about it. You never want to take the powers away from your player and say, you can't resist. You never want to say, the player does this. Because if the player doesn't want to do that, he's not going to do it. And we never say, so-and-so's character does this. It's like, why would I do that? I don't want to do that. And if it's because some greater power is compelling him, then you need to be clear that a greater power is trying to urge him to do something. And he needs to make a will check. The reason being that we have that is so that way we can say, oh, you passed your will check. You're able to resist this, but you feel like it's getting stronger, but you're doing your best to hold it back. You don't want him to say, oh, well, it's not good enough. Or, no, I'm just going to do it anyways. Never say that. That's taking power from your players. Okay, so we covered you're limited by imagination, but be reasonable. Don't take powers from your players. That's also a good one. Last one is make sure everyone knows the rules. Now, the reason I say this is because while it's good to know all the rules in this book or any of the other books, it's impossible to know all the rules. Unless you're kind of weird. In which case, that's good weird. We like you. So long as you're not a dick about it. No one likes a dick rules lawyer. Everyone's okay with a rules lawyer who's nice about it. It's key things. But when I say know the rules, as far as knowing them well, know what you're doing when you build the campaign and build a session, as well as if you've made homebrewed rules and specific changes to, say, a race. Like in your world, goblins are lawful neutral instead of being chaotic evil. Or angels have lost all sorts of right and wrong, are now chaotic neutral. You know, if you're doing something like that, make sure the players are aware of that before the campaign begins. Because things like that can determine what your players decide to play as, what they decide to do. If you have a rule to where the cleric can at any point lose his divine powers because the gods are fighting, well then that's going to make people not want to play a cleric because it's like, oh great, all of a sudden I'm useless. And it's a difficult thing. That being said, there are story reasons for you to have these rules if you've made them. Just make sure that they fit with not only the guidelines, unless you're removing some of those rules, but more fit with the world and you're able to reasonably fit them in there. If you have the decision that, well, angels are now chaotic neutral and they have no ability to tell right from wrong anymore, well, why? What happened to cause this? And is it something widely known, or is it something only a few select people know? Why don't more people know about this? And how often does this become a problem? This is something you need to consider, and as always, is part of the rules. If you make a homebrewed rule or homebrewed change, make sure your players know it and they're aware of it. Because once again, it can affect their choices, as well as what they play and what they do. Anyways, those are my 3 main ones, and thank you for joining me. Excuse that burp. Oh god, I'm losing my ability to breathe through my nose. Anyways, welcome to D20 Sundays. I'll catch you guys next time. Once again, if you have any suggestions for any rules of a Dungeon Master, an immutable rule that you will never break because you have very good reason for it, give us the rule and tell us the reason. Come on, cheer. Anyways, catch you guys next time.